I have a 40-person growth marketing agency, and then I have a 7-figure apparel brand, and I have to run these at the same time. So I've built one Cowork system in Claude to help power both of them. And so what does it actually do? Well, on the agency side, it does everything from helping prep sales calls to the onboarding with clients to actually making the deliverables, making the ads. On the DGC side, it's powering our growth strategy. It's powering those key levers, and it knows everything to where it's helping me do my own content for my personal brand on LinkedIn and other channels, and it does it without me having to think. And so in this video, I'm gonna walk through the exact setup I've done within Claude Cowork, and I'll just give it to you. So hopefully you could build something similar that will allow you to have a much bigger impact, have this form of leverage, so you can focus on the impactful things. Let's get right into it. So let's talk about why Claude Cowork has been such an unlock. And it's with the problem it solves, is that when you're starting up with AI, the biggest issue is, are you giving it enough context? Does it know about you, your company? And does it know what's changed since the last time you spoke with it, right? Whether that's meetings you've had or data that's come in. And then switching costs is very real when you're doing this across multiple companies, right? So for example, for me, 1 minute, I'm working on a sales pitch for a $5 million e-commerce brand for the agency. The next, I'm talking about need ads and what copy or hooks we should be testing, or then I'm writing a LinkedIn post. And so every single one of these sessions, if you just use AI where it doesn't have enough context, you're getting a good output, but it's generic and it doesn't understand your tone. It doesn't understand historically what you've done. And so without any foundation of good context and that voice, you're gonna just hit a wall and it gets really frustrating. And the dual company problem, I think, is very real. A lot of people are working on different things where they need to be separate, but there's also some connective tissue between the things. And so it's an issue because these could be different companies with different teams, different voices, different metrics you care about, different end goals, right? But so example, with Need and Growth Hit, those need to be separate, but there's also the connective tissue where when we talk about Growth Hit, we're using Need as examples. We built in public and we talk about both. So this contrast, it gets really muddy, right? How do you keep those separate, but also let them speak to each other? So that's what we've pulled off. And that's what I want to show you today. And we're going to start with how it's structured because that is key. Let's start with your setup, simply your architecture. And I'm a big fan of simplicity. So I have one unified system, not two separate ones, but I have clear separation within the system for the two companies, for the agency and then for the brand. But then there's connective tissue. And what is that? That's my personal brand and the content marketing structure of it. So before we get into Claude Cowork and the actual skills you can be doing, let's talk about where you should begin. And it's with your global instructions and your file setup, which sounds super boring, but this is key. If you do this right, everything else will take care of itself. So let me share my screen and let's start with the global instructions. So I'm in Claude Cowork right now. And if you're not familiar with it, if you look up here in the top middle section, you see how you have chat, like any LLM like Gemini or ChatGPT. And then if you go to Cowork, this is the one that can access your actual folders and files on your computer and access your browser within Chrome. So let's talk about where you begin. So you're going to go down here to settings, and then you're going to go into the actual Cowork section. And this is key. These are your global instructions. This is page 1 of the operating manual on how Cowork will work with you. So these instructions apply to all sessions, and you can make preferences and callouts in it. And so this is one where I use Claude to help orchestrate this. So I'll just talk about the structure that I did. First is okay, global instructions. Who are you working for? I talk about myself. I talk about the two brands, and I talk about my content marketing initiative and how they're connective. I talk about how I think, the frameworks, the principles that I like. Also, I looked at past content and I had it write up my voice and communication style. That way it aligns with how I communicate. And then I gave it business context. I started with the agency, talked about the services that we do, the clients we do, talked about Need, about our product, the team, everything that's on there. And I talked about output preferences as far as how to message me, how to communicate. This way it has the 30,000 foot view on how we should work together. You've set up your global instructions. Now let's talk about step 2. That gives us the overview of how to work together. Now we'll get into the details, because the exciting thing about Claude is being able to access your computer and to get into folders. You can see there's 3 working folders, and within each one there's a Claude.net claude.md file inside of it that kind of gives the instructions for those main folders. So for example, the growth hit folder, that handles basically me being on agency mode. That means sales work, client work, proposals, case studies, lead generation activities. The need folder, that's when I'm in kind of operator mode, where we're working on ads, email, conversion rate optimization, inventory issues, and team communication. And then the content folder really weaves them together with the personal brand content that I do. So that's specific LinkedIn posts, writing hooks for that, the content calendar, and how to repurpose existing assets or how to repurpose transcripts I have from Growth Hit and from Neat. And so the claude.md file within each of these, think of that as your onboarding document once Claude gets into your file system that tells it exactly what to do before it does that task. So as you can see, that is the key to have this set up the right way. The more specific you are with those instructions in these files, the better everything else will be, and it'll get ahead of these problems before they even begin. And real quick, if you're running a business and you want help scaling from 7 to 8 figures, this is the kind of system thinking we like to bring to every client at Growth Hit. And we've helped dozens of brands at this point scale in a non-linear way to do some exciting things. So if you want to learn more, just click in the description below to book a call with Emma at our team to see how we could potentially help. Would love to learn more about where you're at and where you're trying to go, but no worries either way. Okay, let's get back to the video. What I want to get into now are the different skills that I use, and I'll talk about the different content and resources that it pulls from in those files to really give myself superpowers to do high leverage activities. Let me show this in action. One skill I want to highlight is the sales call prep skill. So the way it works at the agency is our salesperson does a 30-minute discovery call, and then I will come on if it's a big account to do the closing call. And that can be a lot of work for me. I'll watch the call, I'll research the company myself, I'll look at competitors. It's very time consuming. So we built a skill to basically do what used to take me a couple hours to do it in under 20 minutes, all things in with me even reviewing it. So let me show you that in action. So what happens is I'll go in here, I'll be like, okay, go to the Growth Hit folder, look at this skill called Sales Call Prep, and then run it for this company. I put in the URL and I actually put the transcript from the discovery call. And then what you see over here are the steps that it does to start to pull this off. You can kind of see it's going through it, and then it comes up with this call prep document that can be Slack to me, and then it also goes into Asana, and we're able to do that with connectors. So I'm just going to show it here so you can see it. And so as you open it up, it kind of shows everything that helps prepare me for the call. It's giving me context on the company, the person, why we're meeting. And then it starts to go through recent news of the company, just so we have context, competitive landscape. But this is where it gets interesting. It's talking about what they're looking for, where we can help, suggested agenda. It also talks about potential objections to our service and the things that we're going to offer. The other thing that's magical, it talks about things not to say, basically trigger keywords that it picked up from the previous call. Talked about things that could help close it based on what they care about. And so all of this allows me to basically be prepared to go into this sales call, and I'm able to do this in under 20 minutes. And this used to take me hours of time. Whenever we're onboarding a CRO client, one of the first things we have to do is get data and insights to come up with test ideas. And this used to be very manual to have virtual assistants go out, scrape the web, get reviews, get voice of customer, go on Reddit to start to get feedback. We're able to do that now with the click of a button. So this is one of the plugins we have where it does a voice of customer analysis, where it's starting to run these skills, where it'll mine reviews on the existing website. It'll go to the competitors. It'll then do analysis on key reasons people like the company, key reasons they don't. Same thing for the competitors, and what that gap analysis is. All because it's running this plugin that's referencing these skills within the folder structure I showed you earlier within Growth Hit. And we're able to do this not just for this task, but also for making decks that will end up being presented. We do this for ads. Okay, you've seen how I work to do the sales process, to get our agency started, to make ads, or to start doing A/B testing. But what am I doing to get leads? So LinkedIn is an amazing channel where we could be engaging with potential clients and thought leaders, just so we're in the conversation when anybody needs help with growth marketing. But it's very time consuming for me to be on LinkedIn for 2 hours a day to try and find conversations to engage with. So I set up a daily skill that happens every day at 6 a.m. where it basically mines LinkedIn to find any conversations around areas where we're experts. It also tags key thought leaders and influencers with any posts they do where we can also be a part of the conversation. And so I have it find 5 to 10 relevant posts where I can engage with people. It then gives me the recommendation on what to say, and it'll actually post it for me within Claude Cowork because it can access the browser. And so there's a couple filters I have with this. First is I don't want to engage with any competitors to accidentally make some sort of awkward conversation. And I also don't want to be repetitive. I don't want to comment on the same person every day. So I put some guardrails in there as far as who not to engage with. If we engage with somebody, don't re-engage with them for a week or so. And also the comments, we want to only do comments to fairly new posts. We had some issues where it gave us older posts that were a year old. So you want to have some newness and you don't want to be the last comment. So we're within Claude Cowork right now, and you can kind of see here the different scheduled skills. So I have LinkedIn Thought Leadership, and we can go to this one that was run on the 10th, and you can kind of see how it prompted me like, hey, we're going to run it today. Here it is. It gives us suggestions on who to engage with and the actual draft to do. I go through it, I review it, I approve it, and then it'll actually post it for me. And so you can kind of see up here the process on how it goes. And it's like done, it's complete, but it's that simple. Another thing that Claude Cowork has been amazing with is LinkedIn prospect targeting. Essentially brands and companies we'd want to work with, how we can start to engage with them, add value, to let them know we exist. So when it's time to hire an agency, we're top of mind. So here's what we do. So we have an idea of companies we'd want to work with, right? And so the key is who are the decision makers at those companies and how can we start to engage with them? So what we do is we had Claude Cowork build out a database of potential companies we'd want to work with based on our avatars. Then it went on LinkedIn and found the key decision makers within those companies that would hire our agency. And so what we do is we have it mine through that list of potential decision makers. And that could be CEOs, VPs of marketing, directors of marketing. And then it looks to see what they're talking about, what their posts are. And then it calls out any ones where we could really add value. And then it pitches to me those people, what they said, and what my response should be. And again, it has context of what I've been talking about, the services that I do, my voice. And so I go through and I almost never have to edit it, and then I can approve it. And then Claude Cowork will actually post it for me. And the way this works, this is a daily skill that it runs every morning at 7 a.m. and it gives me 5 to 10 options of people that I can go engage with. And this really compounds where it's a simple review and then I approve it and it does all the work for me. So what normally would take me like 2 to 3 hours if I even got to this task, which candidly normally I didn't, this gets done in under a minute. Now let's talk about jumping into Neat and how I can be helpful there, driving the ad strategy. One of the most powerful skills we've built is this one, which is the ad creative brief and the ad generator. Because coming up with genuinely novel and unique ad concepts and hooks can just be mentally exhausting, especially when you're switching back and forth. It's really hard if you don't have a system. So what this skill does, it writes essentially hooks and creative briefs, and it does it in a very smart way. It factors in the 9 copywriting frameworks we really like. For example, problem, agitate, solution is one of them. And then it takes those hooks and then it makes custom ones based on the personas we're going after. And there's 4 core personas. You have everything from the unaware buyer to the informed buyer and a few in between. And the exciting thing is it's not done there. Once it does that, it then gives various hook variations for those personas with the copywriting frameworks, a core body, and then it gives the main call to action. On top of that, it doesn't just give the copywriting, it actually gives the creative guidance. So it'll say, hey, pair this with an influencer video, pair this with the static image, and it'll give the actual script for the influencer video, or it'll actually give the prompt that we can use to make the static image within Pomeli, within Midjourney, or within Gemini's Nano Banana. So this prompt has allowed us to really give us superpowers when we're starting to do ads. And it's been huge for Neat, especially when bandwidth is tough. Okay, so here's the ad creative brief right here. And again, this is specific for Neat. First, I'm talking about what the skill does. Basically, it's being my ad partner. coming up with the research to then write great copy and give great creative briefs, or even giving a prompt to go make the creative in something like Nano Banana or Midjourney. So you kind of see I talk about the brand voice that I like. I talk about the copywriting frameworks. I talk about the different personas we like to go after when writing copy. And then here's the core brief where it's asking about, okay, what is the core angle that we want to do? It's selecting a copywriting framework. It's also writing in a modular way because it knows that when we do ads, we're always testing different hooks. So it's giving me variations. And then the exciting thing, after it's giving me the brief and the copy, it's also giving me the creative direction. And it's telling me how I can do that with AI. And so this again is super powerful, but let me show you where it gets really exciting and how we actually had this make creative for Neat. So over here, you can see that skill in action. After I asked it to do the ad generator, you can see the progress over here where it goes through all those steps that I just went through. And so it started to give the voice of customer brief where it's talking about the language I want to use when we're about to sell the Neat travel pack. And then from there, it's like, here's the objections we usually get with this shirt. Here's what we could call out. And so I really like these. I'm like, let's go. It starts to generate different briefs based on the frameworks we use. What are the different hooks we would want to test and the different types of creative we'd want to do. So it has before and after options, testimonial options. It has like an us versus them option, regular shirts versus ours. And then it actually started to make some creative. I didn't love it within Claude. And that's when we uncovered the unlock of actually giving it access to Pomeli, which is Google's tool, to start to make assets. And so what I want to show here is notice how down here it goes to my work laptop to my Chrome browser. So I got to a point where I was like, hey, why don't you just build these in Pomeli? So let me show you what it came up with. So what you can see now, I'm in Pomeli, and I did already have this set up where I had an account set up for Neat, and I had raw assets that it could start to leverage or even generate. But what it did without me doing anything, it started to make this asset for the travel pack. I never had images of folded shirts. It did that itself. It came up with the copy, the call to action, the accent details right here, and you can kind of see all of it right here. You can even see some of the guidance that it gave as it pulled in images that we had. And again, this was all made without any human intervention, with Claude Cowork getting into my browser and starting to do this within Pomeli. One other use case for Neat that's been a huge unlock is basically being our email copywriter. So the goal with email is to drive 20 to 30% of the revenue for Neat. So writing email sequences, the weekly, bi-weekly emails is really exhausting, especially always wanting to dial in the brand voice because the voice is very specific. It's witty, it's tongue-in-cheek, it's slightly masculine, but generic AI email copy doesn't do that. And plus, I need a copywriter that understands email marketing, specifically e-commerce and Klaviyo. So this skill is really impressive because it writes complete Klaviyo flows and email blasts from the welcome email to the win-back flow to new campaign launches, and it does it with Neat's voice. And so for us, getting that second purchase is everything, and email is the backbone of that. But we're a lean team. We don't have any copywriters. We don't have an email marketer. But now Claude, they have the Klaviyo connector, and then I paired it with this skill that basically allows us to do email with one click. So let me show you what that skill looks like. Okay, so what I'm showing is, you can see within skills, this is one which is for email copywriting. And you see how I have it take the persona of a best-in-class direct-to-consumer email copywriter and manager that really understands Klaviyo. So I give it that role so it knows who to kind of embody. And I talk about where to start, like based on the brief and what we're trying to write. Also, I'm giving it context on the brand, the voice we want to do, the person we're speaking to. Also, this is huge. I've given it basically 500 reviews for it to understand, so it knows how to speak to this audience. It knows what languages they use, and I give it context on competitors. And so once it has that, it's mining for voice of customer. And I kind of gave it a golden rule that, real customer language always beats polished brand speak. It understands the segments of who we go after, and then the copywriting frameworks that we really like to use. Also, you want to give it copy guardrails like character count, the do not say list, things like that. And we're always testing, so it's always giving me A/B experimentation ideas. So again, you can kind of see how this works. but it basically really is a set it and forget it, where it'll pitch me ideas, it'll pitch me copy, and I have it so dialed in I can approve it without having to give it many tweaks. Another amazing use case of Claude Cowork is for content marketing, because right now I have Claude building a database of basically every conversation I'm having. It has transcripts from my Neat calls, from my Growth Hit calls, from my sales calls. And so it's basically creating content as I go. And so this skill, which is my kind of content engine, solves 3 problems that were constantly slowing down my content engine. The first is finding what to post about. It mines recent sales call transcripts, calls I had about Neat, calls I had about Growth Hit, and it can find the best material, the best sound bites that's actually my language, and turn that into content. The second, it avoids repetition. It checks the post log before drafting to see what are the themes or things I've talked about, to either build upon it or to do something new so I'm not being repetitive. And the third is visual. Every post includes guidance on what asset I should do, or the prompt if I want to make my own image that I can copy directly into Nano Banana. What's really nice is the LinkedIn voice that I share is authentic because it's built off of the transcripts from me actually talking. And then it makes it fit the format of LinkedIn. So it's like short and punchy, uses numbers, really focuses on hooks. But every idea, every post ties back to a real conversation. So if anything, I find that this system is faster and it's better because it's more authentic to my voice. Now this really compounds, right? The skills I just walked you through are powerful on their own, but there's one more piece that makes the whole thing compound over time. I also built 3 tracking files that accumulate data over time and feed back into future sessions. So a post log, an engagement log, a prospect tracker. So we have basically a database of all the work we've been doing. So after 30 days, the system's getting smarter. It knows my content history, my active relationships, my warm prospects. And after 90 days, this is a real asset that can build itself in the background. All you have to do is set up the infrastructure where it does that. So the bigger shift here is going from prompt engineering to actually building a system, right? So call it system engineering, if you will. The people I think struggling with AI, they're the ones that are writing longer, more detailed prompts, longer sessions, and they're not investing that initial infrastructure. But the people getting real leverage, they're the ones that are building the context when they do it once, and then they're writing very short prompts. They're activating a skill, and they're producing client-ready output or things that are moving the needle for you. And beyond the productivity piece, this has become a positioning play for Growth Hit. When prospects see how we use AI to run our business, it builds credibility for everything we sell. We built this AI system, we're running it with Neat with our own money, and we've scaled it now. It's taken Neat from basically under 10K per month to doing well into 6 figures per month. And so that's the story we're bringing into every client conversation, is showing the growth and showing how it's on the back of these AI systems. Now, if you want someone to come in and help you build a system for your specific business, that's exactly what we do at Growth Hit. Just click the first link in the description to book a free strategy call. We'll look at your business together. We're going to identify what are the biggest levers that you could pull. What are the roadblocks you have ahead of you that we need to remove so you can scale? We'll show you how to approach that. Again, you can book a call by clicking the link in the description below. And if you want to see how I've scaled my own brand from barely hitting 9 figures a month to 6 figures per month, then check the next video. We'll walk through exactly how we did that.